What's shaking, everybody? We're back. Third video of the day, because that is how we roll. I'm Geoff Ketchum. That's Anwar, Richardson. It is the Orange Bloods Texas football channel. And this particular video brought to you by our partners over at Underdog Fantasy, the best place to play fantasy sports, including best ball, daily drafts, pick 'em, to start drafting in minutes. And then you've got the chance at big cash prizes. It's available on iOS, Android, and the web. And oh, by the way, I believe we've got a special offer if we get the full screen graphic. Use that to get started. And just so you know, if you're in the state of Texas, like, this is all right. It's legit. You don't have to worry. We're not sending you to like some offshore account where you won't be able to take your winnings should you win big. All of this is legal in the state of Texas. Just in case that little thing was floating around inside of your head, now I can relieve you of that concern. Anwar, in an earlier video that we did earlier today, and in that video, I said the same thing. I'll tell everybody else, like the video, subscribe, do all that. We were about to wrap up, and you were like, I got one more thing, and it deserves its own video. Here we are, set the stage for on the fourth day of Texas spring ball, something that occurred, that was said, that went down after practice that you thought was worthy of its own video that we're recording right now.
Yeah, Ketch, it was really interesting. So in the media scrum, Steve Sarkisian gets asked about the recruiting weekend and how it went. And look, recruiting weekend, it's code for, does Arch like you? I mean, let's it is what it is.
Who asked the question?
I think it might have been Joe Cook.
If it was Joe, like whoever did it, it was a very sneaky Arch Manning question.
Yeah.
Worded in a way that I wasn't asking you technically.
Right.
It was
pretty sure it's Joe.
I thought Joe did a very good job of phrasing that in a way where he fired off an Arch question without having to put Sarkisian in a position to say a name that he can't even say.
Correct. That just for everyone who doesn't know, college coaches are not allowed to speak on high school recruits. So can only do it after they sign. And he gave a really interesting answer, Catch, because he started talking about when you recruit the elite guys, he goes, you would love for them to commit early right away, but you understand that, essentially that you have to wait. And he said something that last year I scoffed at, but this year I have to say, I'm like, oh, I believe you. He said, we could get guys to commit right now. You remember when he said that last year about the offensive line, Catch? And we're like, well, if you can, then why don't you get them? And then the next thing you know, he had like this huge haul at the end. You're like, oh, snap. Okay, my bad. So when he says it this time, I'm like, oh yeah, I believe you. Yes, you said that, sorry. Okay, that's what's up. And so it's interesting, Catch, where he knows in the recruiting, whether it's, Arch or Ruben Owens or Jonte, Cook, like he understands that, great weekend, had a lot of guys on campus, had a lot of studs. And you would love for them to say, hey, commit to us in the springtime, right? You'd love Arch to say, commit to us in the springtime. But it's this weird thing that we also understands, like, it's going to have to be a little give and take. And so I don't, when the way they close, Catch, and this is why I want to kind of lean on you a little bit, because you have historical perspective, have the current day perspective, the way they close, especially with the elite guys, it's an interesting formula because, Catch, you'll talk about Mac Brown having basically all the horses in the barn by, what was it, in springtime, summertime, somewhere
He'd have like 17 right now, back in the old days. And you'd be like, okay, well, now they got one guy at each position for the next 9 months that they got to go close on.
Yeah. And now Sark is saying, hey, we're willing to wait. And by the way, is that could have been code was speaking to Art saying, hey, we would love you in the spring, but we also know your family is thinking about waiting until, maybe the fall to do something. Could go a little bit longer. Hey, we're here for you whenever you're ready. What do you think, Ketch?
it's funny because that you brought that. It's when you told me in the last video that you had one more thing that you thought was really interesting, and that it was something that happened after practice. I had a sneaking suspicion that it was this, because we did do videos on this very topic a year ago. And I can remember saying, look, Sarkisian kind of put it out there like he's letting it all hang out. And to the victor go the spoils, because he ended up backing up his words last fall when it looked like the offensive line position was in a really precarious spot. He projected confidence and said, we're going to do the damn thing. And then they did. And so I think we even mentioned this yesterday, like he gets some benefit of the doubt now when he says that, until his words of calm prove to be worthless. Then, like, I think you have to take him, at his word that they know what they're doing, that they are recruiting. I thought less about Arch Manning, as it turned out, Anwar. Actually, I didn't think of Arch at all. And not because you're not right. Because in retrospect, yeah, that could have been a very low-key message to Arch. I thought of immediately the commitment list for 2023. Do you know how many commitments they currently have?
I think is it 2?
2.
Yeah, I thought I looked the other day. I thought it was 2.
It's 2 commitments.
Who are they? Who given us those guys again?
You got Jamel Johnson, who committed on November 4th of last year.
Okay.
He was one of those guys when things were going bad. Jamel Johnson was like, I'm in. And it wasn't an insignificant thing, because it hadn't yet got cool to jump back on that Texas bandwagon. And the second guy was Dylan Spencer, a kid that committed just, maybe like less than 2 weeks ago. And another defensive prospect, a defensive end out of Houston King, who's a national top 121 guy. Both of the guys that they have committed are both on the Rivals 250. They're highly rated guys, lots of talent, but they got 2. And we're about to enter April. And I personally have not been watching recruiting and thinking to myself, oh my gosh, they've only got 2 commitments. What's going on? But I also understand that Arch Manning's not the only guy that kind of wants to make sure this Texas thing is as legit as they keep selling it. And I think that, the thing that an Arch commitment would do is that you could go to any guy in the state of Texas that has reservations about Texas, and you could point to Arch Manning and say, Arch believes, Arch's dad believes, their family, who knows as much about college football as anybody and who could go anywhere they want to go, they believe to the point where they've committed, and I think that rings loudly. If you're a high school kid who's not sure, to be able to point to somebody else and say, this is how sure they are, they have said yes already, but we're not there with Arch. And I think it's just a reflection that this recruiting class is watching a team that went 5-7 a year ago. And if you've got options to go to Alabama or Georgia or Ohio State or Clemson or Oklahoma or even a Texas A&M, which has now spent a couple of years ranked in the top 10 at the end of the season, do you want to go to a place that's not on the level? Texas isn't on the level, and I think kids want to see some signs that they are, but it hasn't. That situation has created an atmosphere where the commitments are a little bit slower than you probably would like. I don't think it's a big deal. Like I said, I didn't overreact to any of it. Texas A&M only has 3 commitments.
Yeah. By the way, I've been looking up some stuff. How many commitments do you think Bama has?
I mean, they have so many offers. I mean, I
They
almost
just
want
about
to say
everybody.
none because of the way that you asked the question, but
Yeah,
surely they've got a couple. So I'll say they have the same amount as Texas. I'll say 2.
bingo.
Yeah.
Now, here's the last one. How many do you think OU has?
I mean, I'm going to say the same thing. New coaching staff. I don't off the top of my, they had 2024 commitments. I remember when they had 3, but they were all out of state. You know what? I'll say 1.
They actually have 4
Okay.
and 3 commitments in 2022.
Okay.
That's what I was going down looking at.
I think that national, I was surprised that Sark positioned it the way that he did, because I don't think you go on Orange Bloods and see a lot of people asking why Texas don't have any more commits. I think the most important thing that Texas fans would need to know about recruiting, and I'm pulling it up right now. I tell you what, in the name of using updated rankings, because I got to update my LSR top 100, and there are a few guys that need to be ranked highly that aren't quite there. But if we go to the state of Texas rankings for the latest that Rivals put out for the class of 2023, and I'm waiting for it to load right now. Come on, server, kick in. I'm afraid that when the Rivals rankings won't load Anwar, that means our video is about to die. All right. So if we look at the Rivals rankings right now, of the top 10 kids in the state of Texas, there's only 1 kid committed. That's Jackson Arnold to Oklahoma, the highest rated guy in the state for 2023 that has announced his decision in the Rivals rankings is a quarterback prospect that has committed to Oklahoma. But then if you scroll down, you got a guy at number 15. You got Dylan Spencer to Texas at 22. You've got 3 guys in the state top 25 that have made decisions. 1 to Texas, 1 to Notre Dame, 1 to Oklahoma. Where you're worried is if that number's 5 inside the state top 10 and you don't have any of those guys. But the reality is Texas is very highly involved with a lot of highly ranked guys, and guys just haven't started to make decisions yet. I just thought it was more interesting that he brought up a point to mention it, almost to get ahead of it, maybe. But it just didn't feel like anybody was saying, why does Texas not? Maybe it was a warning shot that says we might get to May and we might not have a lot of commitments, but that's because, when you go, can remember going to Cancun and like going offshore fishing. And it's like, anybody can catch anything, but you want to catch something cool. That's kind of what Texas is right now. Like they're in the sport of catching something notable, and they could go in. They got some like bass. They could walk away with some sea bass. They want something they want to put on it. They want something they want to mount, hang on their wall.
It's like I'll give you even better one. Texas is like going. It's like the dude who's at the bar. And he starts talking to a really, attractive woman, but it's only like 10:30.
It's not even 10:30. It's like 5:30.
Okay, so you're talking happy hour. You're not even talking. I was going to give him like 10 o'clock, right?
I mean, they're still almost 9 months away from that first signing date. Like it is not 10:30 yet.
Well, then yeah, I was condensing it.
No, I know. I like your analogy.
Yeah, because if you're back in the day, you're like, man, you can't make a move until close to midnight. You got to see what else is coming here. Like you might get stuck talking to this person like all night long, and the next thing you know, you go to the bathroom. Someone winks at you. You're like, oh snap, I'm stuck. I got a decision to make. I don't know what to do, and that's why everybody knows. You buy a drink, you keep rolling. Buy a drink, you keep rolling. I'll be back. You just keep before you settle in. That's just kind of your uncle giving you guys a little bit of a tip.
Every single one of these kids now, Texas, when they showed up a year ago, when they were recruiting the 2022 kids, there were a lot of guys that they were behind the 8 ball a little bit in the sense that they were starting relationships up with guys that they were just meeting, and they were having to do it on Zoom, and the recruiting rules hadn't completely been relaxed yet. And now, and some of those guys they had relationships with because they recruited them at Alabama or at the previous schools that they had been at. But when you look at a guy like Reuben Owens, the running back out of El Campo, or you look at a wide receiver like Jonte Cook out of DeSoto, suddenly they've been recruiting those guys since the first day they showed up. So they're now 14 months into the courtship of a lot of the guys that we're talking about. And they're not going to blink first. Somebody will. But it's not going to be Texas who suddenly starts reaching for players in spots where they have mentally, all right, they've got a spot mentally reserved for Jonte Cook at wide receiver. You don't give away the spot you've got reserved for that guy when you think you've got a real good chance at getting him, and you're 14 months into that courtship. You got to ride that thing out. And we're just at a point right now where, quite frankly, again, he just finished with a top 5 class and was on a roll, and nobody else is on fire, because this is kind of the same. You could ask this of Jimbo Fisher. Hey, Jimbo, talk to us about recruiting. You've only got 3 commitments. And I think everybody, but I don't think Jimbo would get the question in that context, because he just signed arguably the best class ever. And everybody's going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I think that's benefit of the doubt that Sark has earned, and I think he's being given. He answered the question in a way that made me think he wasn't sure if he was being given the benefit of the doubt. But it's led to us having a conversation about all of this. And that's probably not a bad thing. Texas fans should probably know, like, hey, FYI, Texas has 2 commitments, but A&M has 3. Alabama has 2. Only one guy in the state top 10 has a commitment right now, and that's a quarterback that you didn't offer because you wanted Arch Manning, and nobody gets a quarterback. Nobody gets an offer right now at quarterback other than Arch Manning. So you can't really begrudge Oklahoma for getting the only guy in the top 10 who's made a commitment when it's a quarterback who really wasn't being recruited by either of the big dogs in state. It just makes sense. And
but split step before you close. Catch.
Yeah.
One thing I wrote this down, and I wanted to make sure we've talked from the Arch conversation, that prism, from the belief that maybe Texas lands Arch, right? If for some reason it doesn't happen and decides to go somewhere else, do you like that that Sarkisian right now has only offered 1 quarterback and it seems to be content in offering 1 quarterback? Are you cool with that? Do you feel like they should get a backup plan?
Because they got Malik Murphy and Quinn Ewers in the same class. Mm-hmm. And I think that helps a little bit. Now, look, it can all go haywire. People can throw that comment back in my face if in 12 months from now, Hudson Card and Malik Murphy both transfer out, and you're back to Quinn Ewers and Charles Wright, and you didn't and Arch says no. That's a lot of bad things to happen. I'm choosing to live in a world with a little bit of positivity, because I think you've got Malik Murphy, who I think if you miss, worst case scenario, if you miss on Arch, now I think you'd still have enough time to get in. Look, I'll give you the historical thing. Texas did this in 2004. Okay. Rhett Bomar was the #1 quarterback in the country, and it was the only guy they wanted to offer. And it was the only guy they did offer. And so they didn't offer Stephen McGee, who was like a top 5 in-state player. He goes to Texas A&M. His teammate, by the way, Jordan Shipley, committed and signed with Texas. Everybody knows that name. Then there were other quarterbacks. It was a year where the state of Texas had like 5 or 6 guys that were ranked in the top 25, 30 prospects in the state. And as soon as Rhett Bomar announced for Oklahoma, Texas went in and tried to recruit all the quarterbacks that it hadn't offered. And most of those quarterbacks took great offense to it. Quite frankly, Kirby Freeman cursed out Mac Brown. That was the urban legend. Like, why the F are you here now when you weren't here 2 months ago? It was kind of an urban legend that Mac got cursed out. I don't know that the response. You'll be able to go get somebody. But I think their messages, they're all in on Arch. And I think they're the leader. And when you're the leader, to me, you act like the leader. Why would you flinch? Alabama may be the one that needs to flinch and hedge their bets a little bit. Georgia's had, you know what I mean? Like, let the other schools do that. If we get a couple of months deeper into this and there's some dents in your armor, and Arch is definitely telling you, well, I'm probably not going to do something until October. Maybe like after the second week of October. Like, if you're getting that kind of a message, then I think you have to make a real decision. But hell, man, right now, people in the building are optimistic that Arch won't take it out that long. So as long as you've got that gut feeling and you're in the position that they're in, no, I don't. There's nothing about the way they've handled quarterback recruiting in 2023 that I would nitpick at this point. Seriously, like that. This is what it looks like when you are recruiting the number one guy in the country and you're the pole sitter. You have to act like it. And it sends bad. I think it would send warning signs if it was like, oh, Texas just offered a couple of 2023 quarterback commit like guys. I think we would go, oh, what changed? You know what I mean? Like, so no, I'm good with it. I reserve the right to change my mind and nitpick them with 2020 hindsight at a future date. But the way that I would handle it right now is say, no, they've handled that with chef's kiss perfection at this point, to the extent that they're coming off of a 5-7 year and just still were able to bring Arch Manning in the circumstances they did this weekend. Hard to nitpick a staff doing such a good job in this exact specific area.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, Catch. It's a situation where you don't want anything to rock that boat. And the last thing you need to do is give Arch any ammunition, or other programs any ammunition to use against you. And even if it was like a 3-star guy, you know, they would say, look at that. They went out and signed someone, like they're stringing you along, man, you know, blah, blah, blah. You're our guy. So I'm sorry, I ain't rocking that boat. Like, if you've got the chance to give that guy, you just say, all right, I will do what it takes. And it's a gamble, but it's a gamble worth taking, because like anything, if you hit, you hit big. And here's the thing, at this point, Catch, you've got a 1 out of 5 chance. But realistically, you may have from a percentage standpoint, maybe even more than that. Yeah, man, like I keep tabs on some of the other quarterbacks. I know there's a transfer portal that's out there if need be.
That's the other thing.
You know, if I just need a guy, there'll be enough guys in the transfer portal in December that I can go ahead and bring you in if I need some depth. But the last thing I want to do, like, Arch, we love you, and that's all that freaking matters.
No, I'm with you on that. And to use your dating analogy, it's like being at the bar at whatever time, and you're with Halle Berry.
Yeah. And
like, you're already talking to Halle Berry. And then you go to the bathroom and your friend is like, hey, man, don't you think you should throw some fishing lines out to some other girls just in case this whole Halle Berry thing doesn't work out? No. Why am I even talking to you? I almost told myself I would hold my pee the rest of the night so as not to get up and leave Halle alone for 60 seconds so she could change her mind about, like, what is it that I'm doing? No. When Halle Berry's sitting next to you and you guys are having good conversations and you feel optimistic that this is what I came here for, this is what needs to be done, you don't start troubleshooting before the trouble gets there. And I think, again, no nitpick. I'm Mr. Nitpick. I think I've already nitpicked Texas in a couple of other videos today. This isn't the one. It's not recruiting, not right now. Like, I really believe, not just at quarterback, but at all of the positions. I think Sark is completely right. And the question that I had in my head, last thing I'll say, because I think I wouldn't want to end the video without saying the thing that goes unsaid, which is, what is today? It's March. It's the 29th today.
7th, I believe.
29th.
29th? Oh, damn.
It's March 29th. And I'm telling you, on March 29th, there's no reason to panic and freak out because there's only a couple of commitments. So what's the date that you should freak out? And what's the number on that date that would, for me, give you an okay to freak out? I'll go like July 1st, months from now. I mean, 4 months from now, 3 months from now. And I think if you're sitting on 6 or less commitments, I think at that point, which I don't expect at all, but I think at that point, you're a little like Charlie. You're leaving so much work to be done that you put yourself into a position where you're taking risk at that point. Today, there's no risk in any of this. I think there gets to be a point, because I think there's a point where when I say July 1st, I might as well be saying August 1st or September 1st. There's going to be a point in the calendar when all the top guys that are going to make preseason decisions have made them. And then they want to wait for whatever the reasons might be, but they're going to wait, which means they're going to take into account how you look on the field to some degree before making their decisions. And, if a guy wants to do that, there's not a whole lot when you come on. That's the price you pay for 5 and 7. You have to pay a tax. And sometimes there's a weight tax that I think if you're Texas, you can't say is unfair when you're coming off that long of a season. Whereas I don't think any of the other schools are that Texas is competing with. For a guy like Arch, they don't quite have to do, because they got trophies recently. They've been involved in the biggest of the big. Texas is the school that he's looking at that hasn't. And I think that, quite frankly, there's a lot of the top kids that's the thing that Texas has to convince them of, that they're not taking a risk. I think you got 4 or 5 months where if you don't have some of those guys committed, and then you start to see Texas take some under the radar guys, you'll have Sark's words. You'll know that guy didn't want to take anybody but elite guys. If they start taking less than elite guys, whenever it is that they're taking them, that's when we'll know, okay, we've reached a threshold where they themselves feel like they got to start getting some commitments. And they're not doing that yet. And I just don't sense it's going to happen for a while. But you get to the middle of the summer and it's still dry out there on the elite commitment front, and the recruiting class is just slow, then I think you'd panic or at least have some real cause for concern. But I think we're months away from that.
Hey, Catch, I told you this would be a good third video.
You did.
Yeah.
You did. There's no way we could have done it in 3 minutes.
No. Thank you.
Yes. No,
thank you for trusting me.
Yes. That's why Anwar Richardson is Anwar Richardson. And that's why I'm me. I trust him. And sometimes he humors me. That's how these videos work day in and day out. It's a lot of trust and a lot of humoring. Do us a solid, like the video, subscribe to the channel, do all of those things. Comment in the comments section. Are you worried at all? Are you? It's okay. Like, we're not going to flame you for being worried. Let us know in the comments section. And am I wrong? Like, I always leave the door open that could be the case. Make that case if you want to, but I have a feeling you guys will appreciate the fact that we're not yelling fire in a crowded theater before the people even start taking tickets to let people in. For myself and Anwar Richardson, thank you as always for watching the videos. Watch some more. Like, we got videos. I think you and I have done 2 other videos today. Serenity had a video earlier out with Jake Majors today talking about the latest from practice. I can't even keep up with all the videos that
I got a video of guys getting off the bus, and everyone has loved that. People have been clicking on that. Serena and I did a video, and it's going to be posted at some point this week when we talking about speed and track speed and football speed and breaking down the dynamics of that and what we see in football players. And it's only Tuesday.
Hey, can I ask you one question? 30-second answer.
Right.
And if you tell me this needs to be a 30-minute video, I will trust you.
Okay.
Is the urge to look at dudes walking off the bus in their football uniforms, is that same guy watching combine videos of guys in their underwear? And I don't mean it like in a sexual way or anything. I just mean some guys like to look at athletes off the hoof to judge them. We did it earlier with Jatavian Sanders. To be fair, totally dressed.
Yeah.
There is a little bit of a meat puppet show thing that goes on at the combine. I just wonder how far removed jocking guys as they come off the bus is from Tom Brady and his skivvies at the combine.
It's not that far, but here's what I will say. It's not that far. It's a little bit far, like, because it's combine guys is like Alex measuring hands, right? Like, that's like
rated PG-13 versus rated R.
Yes. But how many times do people love the videos of guys like coming off the bus and walking into the tunnel for an NBA game, NFL game? And some of that's just the outfits, but it's just a guy with headphones on who's acting like he doesn't see the cameraman right in front of him because he's got to be so cool. People like to see people walking into their place of work. I don't know what it is. But
I feel like it's different for game days versus practice.
Yeah.
I think for practice, I think people are looking at calves and elbows and thighs. And
there were some comments.
And we're not judging, because when Jason takes the first practice photos back on, and he had a photo gallery up on Orange Bloods today, by the way. When he did that, like, I was one of the first ones to like, wow, okay, Jalen Garth, looking good, kid. Like, I'm not judging anybody. I'm putting myself somewhere in the mix. And I'm just wondering how far gone I am. Anwar, you answered the question. You know, if any of you want to put in the comments section where you fall on the NFL draft, you know, combine / kids getting off the bus, how similar it is. Quite frankly, those are probably the comments of all of the other comments that I want to read the most. I'm more and myself. We'll see you guys later. Take care. Bye-bye.